The focus of this presentation is Abelardo Morell, who has distinguished himself during the past 20 years as a contemporary artist with exceptional technical elegance and creativity. Morell may be characterized by this quote made at the infancy of photography almost 170 years ago by William Henry Fox Talbot regarding Talbot's vision of photography. In this brief presentation, I will demonstrate how Morell, like Fox Talbot, is an inventor with a desire to be an artist, and suggest Morell's achievements may be regarded as influential as Fox Talbot's by the generations to follow. Born in Havana, Cuba, Morell came to the United States as a teenager in 1962 with his family as exiles from the political upheaval in Cuba. He attended Bowdoin College to study the fine arts and earned a Master of Fine Arts degree at Yale University. He lives with his wife Lisa and children Brady and Laura near Boston, Massachusetts, where he labored as a professor of photography at the Massachusetts College of Art. At Bowdoin College in Maine, he discovered Winslow Homer, the 19th century painter who so famously depicted the New England landscape. Morell photographed numerous artworks while at Bowdoin. He studied the photography of Robert Frank, Henri Cartier-Bresson, Diane Arbus, and early photographic images made by Morell were street photography. As a graduate student, he had admired the work of Gary Winogrand and Lee Freelander. His mentor at Yale was Todd Papageorge, whose career began in the New York City street scene photography movement of the 1960s. Morell gained attention for intimate black and white pictures of the world from a child's point of view, inspired by the birth of his son in 1986, as well as his camera obscura images. In more recent years, he's turned to color and explored the camera obscura with a painterly approach and created a tent camera that projects outdoor scenes onto the textured ground. Across his career, Morell has approached photography with remarkable wit and creativity. As you can see on the previous slide and here, Morell's photographic achievements have been recognized in solo gallery exhibitions and publications. However, few of Morell's early street photographs appear to have gained him notoriety. The birth of his son in 1986 forced him to work within the confines of his home in Massachusetts. Perhaps Morell's artistic education influenced this image, which shares similarities of many painted and framed images in New England galleries. Morell's home became the studio where photography took on a new life. He began to make photographs as if he were a child himself. This approach allowed him to look at the world more closely from a fresh perspective. With his camera, Morell deconstructed common scenes laden with symbolism to explore insights commonly overlooked. He utilized large format cameras to produce elegant black and white film photographs of his home, his family, books, maps, still life, and camera obscura works. Morell concedes it was a silly time, but artistically it was a serious time. I felt like I discovered photography all over again, he says. Working within the confines of an apartment was freedom, Morell says, not imprisonment. I was liberated to invent a new narrative. Laura and Brady, his children, remained central to his work for nearly a decade. He searched out the beauty in ordinary things for what else they may be. In 1998, he was commissioned to illustrate a new version of Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. By cutting out Sir John Tyndall's original illustrations and making the characters look three-dimensional, Morell placed them in his photographs. One, for example, has the illustrated Alice next to a stack of real books. The use of camera-like apparatus in the arts influenced not only Henry Talbot Fox, but also many of the artists Morell studied while in college. They made use of the camera lucida for tracing images and recreating their memory later in paints. Morell has discovered a new dimension for a similar apparatus, and since 1991, he has converted room interiors into a camera obscura in order to photograph the strange and delightful meeting of the outside world with the interior. In his son's bedroom, Morell created a camera obscura by darkening the windows except for one small hole to the outside world. He set his large format view camera on a tripod with only a pinprick of light entering and opened the shutter. He left the room and waited for 8 hours. The result was mesmerizing. The developed picture showed interesting trees and houses across the street, hovering over toys like a scene from a fairy tale. I was giddy, Morell said. I felt like the moment photography was invented. As we know, there is a strong relationship between photography and drawing. In 1833, Fox Talbot, frustrated by his clumsy drawings, had the idea to fix an image he remembered seeing on the ground glass of a portable camera he used in an earlier outing. In this image, Morell pays homage to Fox Talbot. It is a scene that Fox Talbot photographed many times 170 years before Morell. The image by Morell with his 4x5 camera over the course of an 8-hour open-shutter session is the same one Henry Fox Talbot captured for his first calotype print. After creating a series of black and white camera obscura film images, Morell replaced film with a digital sensor, which is more light sensitive. He cut exposure times, permitting him to capture clouds, shadows, and other moving objects. Morell describes his camera obscura images as recording what a room sees, the inner life, where the outer world is transformed by the experience of being seen. These images may appear infinitely simple at a glance, but they continue to unfold with meaning over time. This project has taken Morell from his Boston home to all sorts of interiors around the world. One of the satisfactions he gets from making this imagery comes from seeing the marriage of the inside and the outside world. He pays considerable attention to creating these marriages of two worlds for the resulting photographs. Morell's current camera obscura works have taken a seemingly surprising new direction. He has invented a portable tent rather than a room to project the outside scene onto the ground rather than the interior walls of the room. The resulting photographs take on the appearance of paintings. As a student at Bowdoin College in Maine, he discovered many painters who depicted the world with similar aesthetics. Observing the landscape with specially equipped tents was practiced by artists in the 19th century in order to trace what they saw in the landscape and later reproduce them in paintings. Their approach to picturing the land was done long before the invention of photography. Morell's work captures the majesty of landscape with an approach that acknowledges artists before him and the advances of technology. Recognizing this connection of art and photography, Morell took his tent camera to Winslow Homer's home and studios in Prouts Neck, Maine, an isolated stretch overlooking the ocean where Homer lived and painted seascapes before his death in 1910. Morell positioned his tent over a patch of sandy grass and directed the periscope lens onto the sea. The resulting picture transforms the landscape and horizon into an image by projecting it on the tangled mesh of plants upon the ground. In an homage to the artists he admired, Morell recreated their aesthetics into a photograph. Morell's work challenges postmodernist cynicism that declares photography dead. Morell has distinguished himself as a contemporary artist with exceptional technical elegance, creativity, and inventiveness. He has produced unique photographs unlike any before them, within the confines of a straight aesthetic, without resorting to collage or digital postmodern manipulation. His camera obscura images appear pure, but are highly constructed observations, exploring essential principles of photography. Morell's work is in the permanent collection of museums around the world. A retrospective of his work has been organized by the Art Institute of Chicago and the Getty and the High Museum in Atlanta, recently traveling the nation.